Hey everybody, it's Mr. Olson from the Marine Science Station. Today we're out in the Gulf of Mexico, Crystal Bay, real close to shore, about 2 miles offshore, just south of markers 1 and 2 and north of Mangrove Point. So what we're going to do is we're going to deploy an otter trawl behind the boat and see what kind of specimens we can collect off the seafloor out here. So here's how it works. We have a net that's about 8 to 9 feet wide at the mouth, and it comes down to a tail end, what we call the cod end, and this is where all the fish, shrimp, crabs, whatever else we catch down there are going to get collected in here. The trawl is pulled behind the boat. There are 2 wooden doors that extend out and keep the mouth of the net open. It's towed near the seafloor, and as it glides along, things are caught in the net, and we only pull for about 5 minutes tops, and then dump the contents onto a sorting table, and then we'll put them in water, the specimens we want to collect, and we'll just talk about whatever we collect today. So here we go.
Let us discover what the sea brings forth.
Okay, let's see what we got here. Nice. Here we have a large amphipod crustacean, and this is one of the primary consumers within the food web out here, and they're feeding on materials on the seaweeds and maybe the detritus growing on the bottom, and they are in turn fed upon by fish like the pinfish and grunt. Lots of other species eat these amphipods or isopods. This might be an isopod. I don't have my good eyes on today. Yeah, it looks like an amphipod. We have some different types of seaweeds here, also known as macroalgae, and they're not true plants like shrubs and trees and grasses. They don't have roots or stems or leaves per se, but they have similar structures that allow them to capture sunlight and to get nutrients throughout the whole structure of the organism. But these are photosynthetic organisms. They're capturing light energy and converting water and carbon dioxide into food and oxygen. So these are some of the producers on the seafloor here in a seagrass meadow that's underneath of us. If you noticed in the trawl catch, we did not have much seagrass. That's because even though we sampled over a seagrass habitat, the seagrass is anchored in with their roots and their underground stems called rhizomes, and that keeps them intact from the bottom. Our net is just gliding over that and capturing the loosely attached organisms and things that are swimming around. So the seaweeds that we collected are just loosely associated with the seagrass. They look kind of flattened out of the water, but let's see what happens when we put them into the water. Like this one. Let's start out with this piece of reddish brown algae. Notice how it fluffs out and its structures spread out. So here's some more, and as you notice, when it goes into the water, it can spread out, provides lots of surface area for small creatures to live inside. And this one here will spread out as well. And as you can see, lots of hiding places, a lot of attachment points for small animals without backbones, or invertebrates like small shrimp, worms, amphipod crustaceans, hermit crabs, like the little hermit crab down there. They can crawl around all this seaweed and feed on it, feed on the things living on it, and it's a good habitat for them. So these are the producers, some of the producers down in the seagrass habitat. Some of the other ones that we've collected today, some examples. This is a sample of manatee grass, and manatee grass is one of three main types out here. There's manatee grass, there's turtle grass, which we have some leaves of some turtle grass here, and then we have shoal grass right here. These are three main types of seagrasses growing along one of the largest seagrass meadows in our country. This is the second largest seagrass meadow in Florida, right off the coastline of Citrus County. It extends all the way down to the Anclote River, all the way around the Big Bend of Florida, near Apalachicola Bay. So that's part of the St. Martin's Marsh Aquatic Preserve and the Big Bend Seagrass Preserve, and also the new Nature Coast Aquatic Preserve, all to protect seagrasses and the life found in them. So here's our producers. Now let's look at some of our consumers. Some of the most simple animals in the world live in the oceans, and here's some examples of them. These are sponges. Sponges are animals. They're in the phylum Porifera, also known as the pore-bearing animals. And there's lots of teeny tiny holes, almost microscopic holes, along the outside of their body. And water can be brought in through currents that are generated by special cells inside of the sponge called collar cells or choanocytes. And they have structures that whip around inside the animal, creating water currents. The collar of the collar cell captures food particles such as detritus, bacteria, and phytoplankton, sometimes zooplankton. And other cells inside the structure of the animal are called amoebocytes, and they will capture the food particles and send the nutrients to other parts of the body to give the nutrients that the organism needs. They get their oxygen from the water that's dissolved in the water, so they get rid of their waste products and their carbon dioxide out some bigger holes. It's hard to see on these structures, maybe on the top of this one. The small ones on the side are called ostia. The small holes are. The bigger holes are called oscula. So ostia, water coming in, oscula, water going out. So sponges, this is just a couple of different types of sponges. There's many different varieties out here in the Gulf of Mexico in the shallow waters of seagrass meadows. Some other simple animals include the bryozoans. These are often called the moss animals, and they almost can be mistaken for corals, at least these examples, but each little thing sticking up here and every little hole that you see along the structure of the animal is an individual, and these live together as a colony, and they are capturing food particles in the water, pieces of detritus, phytoplankton, and this is their adult form. They probably have a larval form that drifts around the water and settles down on the structures like seagrasses and then turn into the adult form. And now we have some more complex animals, and these would be things like this guy here, an arrow crab. An arrow crab is a member of the phylum Arthropoda, the jointed-legged animals. Common arthropods include insects, arachnids, chelicerates like the horseshoe crab, and then these are in the class Crustacea. And so crustaceans include shrimp, lobsters, crabs, and the arrow crab got its name because if you look at its head there, there's what looks like an arrow sticking up out of it, a straight part. That's its rostrum, and it sort of looks like an arrow, and hence the name arrow crab. These things are perfectly adapted for hiding amongst seaweeds like this, and this is their particular habitat. They will feed on the pieces of seaweed and any other invertebrates that might be crawling along them, but they can be perfectly camouflaged, mainly because they are clear in color. And their predators include fish that like to eat crustaceans. We know that striped burrfish like to eat them, and puffers, and anything else that could probably get their mouths on this animal, they'll eat it for a meal. So this is a arrow crab. I don't know if it's going to come out or not, but there's a little hermit crab right there trying to get out of that shell. So hermit crabs are also crustaceans, and they don't make their own shell. A mollusk, a gastropod mollusk, where a snail actually made the shell, and when the snail died, the hermit crab moved in. And as the hermit crabs age and molt and get bigger, they have to have bigger shells to live in, like this one. Now this shell here, I believe, does have its snail in there. I think this is a marginella. I'm not 100% sure which snail this is, but this is a member of the phylum Mollusca. And mollusks include the snails, the bivalve mollusks like scallops, oysters, and clams, and things like abalone and octopus, squid, chambered nautilus. All those are members of the phylum Mollusca. Here we have a member of the phylum Echinodermata. Echinoderms are the spiny skinned animals, and everyone knows this is a sea star or a starfish, and this is a young common thorny sea star that we find out here in the Gulf of Mexico. Some people call it the brown sea star. And this is the surface called the aboral surface. There's no mouth on this side. The mouth is on the underside. So this is the oral surface, and in the center is its mouth. You can see the little orange sections here. Those are its tube feet, and they have like a suction cup disc on the bottom, and you can kind of see the tube feet moving right now as it's trying to get a grip and move. This animal does not have muscles. What it uses is a system of hydraulics using water inside of these tubes inside the body, called a water vascular system. If I were to flip the animal over, it might be hard to distinguish, but one of the yellowish white circles you see is somewhat different than the others, right in the center, the central disc, and that's where water is brought in. It's called the madreporite. Water comes through that and into a series of tubes that extend through each arm, and the tubes terminate at the tube feet. So imagine using a eyedropper to suck up water and squirt it out. It's sort of that principle, hydraulic principle, where these tube feet can move with the change in water pressure. The animal is predatory. It will search for its prey using smell and sometimes sight. At the tip of each arm are eye spots that can detect movement, but probably mostly it's detecting its prey through the sense of chemical cues like smells in the water. And it will go after anything that's dead on the bottom, a dead fish or dead shrimp or something like that. Go over it and begin to feed on it. It'll also wrap its arms around small prey like a small clam, and the arms will wrap around the small clam and pry it open just enough, or be patient enough until the clam relaxes its shell, and the mouth there will open up. The stomach inside that's right behind the mouth will come out and go inside the clam, and each arm has a large digestive gland that secretes lots of digestive enzymes or juices to break down the clam on the inside of its shell. The stomach wraps around the food inside the clam and then pulls everything back into the mouth. And we like to tell the kids that's the equivalent of you barfing up your stomach, wrapping around your lunch, and then bringing your lunch back into your body. Kind of a strange way to eat, but it works for the sea stars and the other echinoderms. The other echinoderms that are out in the ocean include sea urchins, sea cucumbers, sea lilies, and brittle stars. And we often will find brittle stars, the occasional sea urchin in this area, and the occasional sea cucumber. But they have 5-part symmetry. As you can see, there's 5 arms in this one. Another common one in sandy areas or beachy areas are the sand dollars, and those are also members of the echinoderms. If you find a sand dollar, you'll see the 5-part symmetry on it. So that's an example of the echinoderms. These were just a sample of some of the many types of organisms that live in the seagrass community right off the shores of Citrus County. You can learn more by checking out the links in our post below, and we hope that you enjoyed the video and come back for more. Thanks again.